Darktide. Legacy Gaming's pretty good. Who else is on here? It's been talking about Force Gaming. I like Force Gaming. How long is this video? 17 minutes? All right, let's go. What's up, Force?
Taking an in-depth look at Warhammer 40k Darktide. I got to sit down with the developer for about an hour last week, and we went into great detail about many major aspects of the game, from character creation to customization, progression, mission structure, what you'll be doing, the social hub, the end game, the loot, and much, much more. I gotta say, after seeing and learning more about Darktide, I am even more excited for this game now than I was before, when I just figured it was gonna be like Vermintide with more guns. And it is Vermintide with more guns, but at the same time, it looks to be doing a whole lot more and bringing some brand new ideas to the table as well. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in and take a closer look at Warhammer 40k Darktide. So the very first thing you'll be doing in this game is making a character. Unlike its predecessor, Vermintide, which had distinct named characters that you just picked and played as.
I mean, that's
Darktide,
nice
you'll
to
get
have
to create
character
your own version
customization
of the game's classes, choosing between an Ogryn, Veteran, Psyker, and Zealot, then customizing from there. They said they really wanted to double down on customization, going very in-depth with lots
I probably
of
will
options,
lose my
choosing
hair.
male or female,
I'm starting to feel it.
for the Ogryn, who can only be male, and then picking from loads of different faces, heights, hairdos, skin colors, other features, lets you create your very own distinct version of a class. Now, upon revealing this feature, there has been some concerns raised within the community that stepping away from having distinct named characters would mean the game could lack some of the charm that came from their personalities and interactions. But Fatshark has said that they feel like they found a nice balance, and even with the customization, have made some really cool characters anyway. So in the current system, every single class has 6 personalities, 3 for each gender, that you'll get to choose from, each with completely unique VO lines and interactions. So technically, they have said there are a lot more characters. Now, of course, the concern here would be that with a greater number of quote-unquote characters comes less depth, but they promise there's still plenty to be found, with thousands of lines between each of the classes, having different personality options, and then interactions even between 2 separate versions of the same class. There will be dialogue that they have with one another as well. So it isn't quite the same as playing as like known characters within the 40k universe, but they do hope that they've created a system with a very similar effect. Each character and personality will have a relationship with one another. Some may, for example, respect a particular class. Others may fear that class, and all of this will affect their dialogue and behavior and chatter that takes place while you play.
Okay.
Liar woman is unusual.
I reckon we could do much worse. At least she's sober, I think.
I can hear
so
you.
you pick a class, you choose their appearance and personality, and then it's time to play. Now, at this point, you'll be taken through the game's prologue. They were pretty hush about exactly what this is going to entail, either because they're not finished with it or they just didn't want to spoil any of the reveal
That like
here. But basically, what's
sword
gonna happen is you will
chainsaw
go
is
through
pretty
a series
dope.
of events that are going to set up how you got where you are and why you are now working for the Inquisition, which is like the primary driving factor of this game. You are trying to raise your reputation, completing tasks for the Inquisition, and go through the ranks while also progressing the story. After the prologue, you then find yourself on the Morning Star. This is a spaceship orbiting Adama Prime that acts as your base of operations, where you'll be picking up quests, chatting with NPCs, selling and crafting gear,
Pretty
and
standard
also seeing
stuff.
other players, because the Morning Star is basically a social hub on its own dedicated server where you can see other people running around beyond the members of your own party. You'll be able to communicate with them, check out their gear, and also party up with them inside of this hub. I asked how many other people we can expect to see at any given time, and they have said that the goal goal is somewhere around 20, but they haven't nailed down the exact number as of yet. A lot of this will depend on how the network testing goes. Upon first arriving in the Morning Star, you will be guided through a series of
zombie
quests,
mob
learning
looked
about
pretty
the
cool.
play space, talking to the different NPCs, and then you will be directed to the mission board, which is your jumping off point for actually playing the game. The mission board, centrally located in this hub, provides you with a list of currently available missions. This is going to serve two primary functions. First, to act as a matchmaking system, ensuring that players are always able to find a group to play with, but also it works to kind of build the story and narrative as the available missions play into the story of what's going on in the world at any particular time. But missions aren't just levels which you'll be playing through, they also come with a variety of parameters. There will be multiple levels of difficulty, from how tough enemies are to the number of enemies you'll encounter. It's not just going to be easy, medium, or hard. With the toughness and numbers taken into account, there are actually 10 different potential difficulty measures. On top of that, there are additional side objectives and circumstances that can be applied to a mission, providing even more variety, which I'll get into a little bit later. All of this on its own, they said, would have created too many matchmaking options if players could have just selected and booted these things up individually with all of their different parameters, which is part of the reason they went with this mission board system instead, to help funnel people into games and find people to play with easier. All missions will be rotating pretty constantly, from the levels themselves to the difficulties and the host.
Should have done like a Diablo system.
So you will walk up to a mission board, you will select from one of the currently available missions, hit go. At that point, you are matched with other players. You'll get a chance to see their classes and their loadouts, and then once everyone has readied up, the mission will begin. Now, the bulk of the gameplay experience in this game should be very familiar to anyone who's played any of the Vermintide games. You and your party will hack your way through hordes and hordes of enemies, working together to take on tough or evasive enemies, rescuing teammates who might get trapped, doing various side tasks, fighting bosses, all while working on completing the mission's main objectives. These objectives are usually staged as you progress your way through the level, and they'll come in a range of types. You may have to find the means to open a particular door.
Popped
you
his
might have
head
to call
off.
in an elevator and then fend off enemies that are engaging while you're waiting. You might have to search for and clear this spreading fungus, hack into a terminal, blow something up, etc., etc. Every single mission in the game is handcrafted. You should expect the same kind of design and structure as was seen in Vermintide, just in a way different setting. Also, in Vermintide, the missions were separate in their own distinct locations, but in Darktide, they've kind of gone a different route, with some of the missions actually sharing the same general space and even intersecting with each other. So while going through a mission, you will at times pass by places that you were at in previous missions. You may, for example, be walking over a bridge, and then as you look off into the distance, you might see parts of a hive or rooms or boss areas that you were in and playing through earlier on other missions.
I thought he meant like
kind of
you
meant to make
backtracking.
the whole world feel a lot more interconnected.
I
This
don't
design,
like
they also told me,
backtracking is not fun, but it doesn't sound like backtracking. It just sounds like,
and we'll be able to push out new content at a much faster pace. Now, while the missions themselves are handcrafted, their layout and your objectives, when repeating the same mission, like in Vermintide, you still won't know exactly what's going to happen, mainly due to the enemies you come across will be different, will act differently, and will have different parameters, spawning in different locations and in different volumes, etc. In terms of the types of enemies, they will be sticking to the basic Vermintide formula and mix. In fact, I was told we can expect the exact same types of enemies as in Vermintide, but now in this 40k setting. So we will face off against hordes of enemies, the swarmer types. There will be elites like fast-moving, bulky, ranged, ones that trap players or hunt them down. There's a variety of mini-bosses, which are monsters like the Plague Ogren that can randomly spawn on any single map, and you will have to work together to take them out. Some missions will also have their own fixed full-on boss battles, where the main goal of that mission is to track them down and defeat them. But any variety isn't all that plays into
what do you think, chat?
in Darktide. Don't
I mean, it seems fun, but it also doesn't seem to do anything
that will help with this
original,
as well. They
really.
said that because players in Vermintide were able to kind of figure out the random encounters after playing for many hours, that they have built a lot more randomness even into
the same
these
instant
games'
stuff.
set events. So event mechanics are going to be a lot more co-op focused than they were in Vermintide, including side objectives that are way more involved and may require you to finish a mini game.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling
too.
Like, it looks all right. Like, I'll play it.
All of this is to say there's going to be a lot more layers to some of these side tasks that help mix things up. The unique system of the Tome and Grimoire will be returning as well, but instead of being baked into every single level, it is now one of those potential parameters that a mission could have.
Yeah, this one, welcome to the stream. And yeah, it was Mr.
that will change how
Anything Everything that did a huge gifted sub earlier.
Stuff that's going to be right in your face. This could affect the enemy types or strength.
And now you have access to all the sub
visual and
emotes.
Environmental elements like adding darkness or a fog effect, things that will adjust the way you play and really change one mission from another.
You almost get into Vermintide back in the day, but none of my friends wanted to play.
Board, so
yeah, it lost player base pretty quick too.
Parameters, depending on how you feel like engaging with the game, how difficult you want it to be, but also all of this will play into the rewards that you get at the end. Now, they went on to tell me that using Left 4 Dead as an example, co-op is not going to be an option in this game, but rather it is a must. If you go out on your own, you'll just die. You have to work together as a team in order to survive and to complete missions. In many ways, this is Vermintide in space, just with way more emphasis on ranged gameplay for you, but also for the enemies. They told me that this shift in focus also forced them to rethink a lot of systems and had turned it into, in many ways, a very different game, which was surprising to them, but with the same basic backbone, with the same core. Darktide, they say, is very much a spiritual successor and not just a reskin of Vermintide 2. And speaking of this new, more ranged focus, you know, there's going to be more guns, more ranged weapons in this game. We'll be using them more. And I asked them actually specifically how often we should expect to be shooting versus slashing. I was told that you will not be able to constantly use a gun on every single enemy, and you will need to regularly swap between ranged and melee, partially because ammunition will be scarce, so you'll need to conserve it, but also the enemies you're fighting will encourage weapon swapping. He said that while in Vermintide there was about a 60-40 melee to ranged split, Darktide will be closer to 50-50, so you'll be using ranged about
that makes sense.
Time. And as an anecdote, he told me that if you asked any of the devs on the team, they would say that they use ranged way more often. But when looking at the actual stats, it shows that it is very much so down the middle, again, at that 50-50 split. So say when there's a horde charging at you, certainly you're going to start picking some of them off from a distance. But once they get close, odds are you will swap to melee to take them out faster using those cleave attacks and some of your character's abilities. It's going to have a similar flow to Vermintide, but the range is a lot more fleshed out in this game. And I have to say, looking at this gameplay, it certainly looks to be the case. I'm pretty impressed with what we've seen from the ranged combat. Okay, now let's go ahead and jump in to talk a bit about progression. In terms of loot, it is back and it will be a big focus. After completing a mission, you will be rewarded with some random piece of gear based on how well you did. You're also giving gear as a
I like it better though.
Level up.
I wish you got gear.
There's also in-game shops where you can purchase weapons.
I always want like a game that's like in first person that drops like
and there's
gear
a crafting system where you can change up the traits and
from
stats
enemies,
of gear to better
like
suit your build,
or loot from enemies, even if it's like a currency. Just feels better. Feels more rewarding.
Target rare and unique weapons. These are kind of like long-term quests. You'll lock in a particular weapon that you want, and then by completing a load of contracts, you can use that to purchase said weapon. There's also weapon progression because they come in the different rarities, like common, uncommon, all the way up to relics. Relic weapons are the cream of the crop. They're going to have more trait options and more trait slots, and also compared to Vermintide, where the stats of, say, a two-handed hammer was always going to be the same, in Darktide, there will be some randomization of those stats within a range, with
I like
lower
that.
tier items having less potential stats, higher tier items having more stats.
That gives more of like a grind
ideal stat
replayability
of those relic
on
items.
stats.
That is what you're working towards. Beyond
That's like
here, there is
the
further character progression. As I mentioned, you will level up, and there is a talent tree for every single class. This is similar to Vermintide. You level, get a point, and then spend that point in a talent that you like. Leveling also is tied directly into story progression, where as you rank up, as you level up, you rise in the ranks in the Inquisition, which unlocks more telling of background stories, interactions with NPCs, and various cutscenes. Now, they told me that the max character level is going to be around 30-ish. This could change. They haven't quite nailed down which number it will be, but whatever it is, once you hit max level, you will have the entire skill tree unlocked, and then players who continue to play after max level will be hunting for the better gear, but also hunting for cosmetics. There will be a lot of cosmetics in this game that come through the achievement system. If you do cool veteran stuff, you will unlock cool veteran gear. There will, I was told, also be a premium cosmetic store. It will be different from the cosmetics that you get from achievements, so players can tell, did you buy that skin? Did you get it from doing something in game? They also assured me that the cosmetics in the store would not be tied to player power, so if nothing else, that's a relief. Okay, so that covers character creation, missions, enemies, gameplay, progression, systems.
Because I only want to grind with for cosmetics
as well. In terms of what exactly is
in the
on
game,
the Morningstar,
where people can tell that you played the game.
Specifically, they told me there is the mission board, crafting vendors, contract vendors, those are like side quests, a weaponsmith, a credit store, a barber shop if you want to customize your character. There's also going to be an in-game mail system where the developer can send you gifts, maybe like a launch week gift or a gift for playing for a month or something. But then also the in-game mail will be used in case you disconnect. They can send you the lost loot that you had in the mail that way, sort of like what they do in Destiny. But this is not an in-game mail system from player to player. You can't mail stuff to one another. That's not what this is meant for. I asked what we can expect there to be in terms of variety of missions on the mission board at any given time. They said they will regularly be easy, medium, and hard options mixed up with all those different parameters. And because rewards aren't one for one, sometimes players will want to do easy missions that have good rewards. Or maybe you get a contract that has you do an easy or medium mission. The idea here is that you're not always just going to be doing the hardest mission you can do based on your level and your gear. You might be hopping around, and this is also going to do a good job, in my opinion, of helping mix up new and veteran players, where the veteran max level players with all of their epic gear aren't just going to be doing the hardest potential missions. They're going to be doing other missions to get those different types of rewards. Also, there is a loadout system. Right before the mission, you're able to set your particular loadout for what you want to bring into a mission, but then also after you matchmake and you have your team, you can see what they have. You can see the items they're carrying, and you can change your gear accordingly. He told me that this is important as you're going to want to vary up your team setup. Like one person might have a las pistol, so maybe you want to swap out to a plasma gun, and someone else is also going to want to bring an auto rifle, and this is because certain weapon types are going to be stronger versus different types of enemies. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. That covers just about everything we went over.
Sweet. Sounds like a lot of good improvements. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like it does anything unique in particular, but that's kind of like, you know, par for the course lately. It's kind of why I've been liking the Cycle Frontier so much, is because it's a unique take on Escape from Tarkov. Yes, it does have that kind of Escape from Tarkov gameplay loop, but it's a unique take on it, and there hasn't been that gameplay loop around everywhere. So that's kind of why I've been liking this game. That being said, like, what I see in like Darktide is a little bit more expected in traditional gameplay type of that co-op like progression. I don't know if you would necessarily call it like ARPG style mechanics, but somewhere around there. Anything